August 26, 2013, 2 a.m. A stock BMW Z4 rips through an empty Manhattan. No modifications, no turbo. Just 255 horsepower and 26 miles of highway, tunnel, and bridge wrapped around the most famous island on Earth. 24 minutes and 7 seconds, 6 red lights, average speed 66 miles per hour. 3 days later, the footage hits YouTube. Hundreds of thousands of views in 48 hours. Within a week, the NYPD commissioner personally orders a citywide manhunt. They found him, arrested him, put him on trial, flew in experts from Google, Facebook, and Verizon to testify, got the conviction, and he still got away. The driver's name was Adam Tang, Canadian citizen living in East Harlem. He called himself AfroDuck, and the video he posted of a stock BMW lapping Manhattan would cost him his apartment, his marriage, and his entire life in the United States, but not his freedom, because Adam Tang did something no other street racer caught on American soil has ever done. He fled the country in the middle of his own trial, crossed the Canadian border in the same car the police had impounded, and disappeared. The border agent handed back his license and said, "Good luck, AfroDuck." He's never served a single day of his sentence, and the person who beat his record 7 years later learned from every mistake he made. This is how one YouTube video created America's most unlikely fugitive. Most people don't know this challenge exists. A full lap around the perimeter of Manhattan. 26 miles of highway, tunnel, bridge, and city streets stitched into one continuous circuit. And the road itself is the first opponent. The FDR Drive makes up the eastern edge. 2 narrow lanes that zigzag along the waterfront with concrete barriers on both sides. No shoulders, no room for error. At the speed limit, it's tight. At twice that, the walls close in so fast your peripheral vision blurs. The southern tip funnels through the Battery Park underpass, a tunnel that spits you out onto West Street heading north. Then it's a straight shot past the World Trade Center, past Chelsea Piers, past the cruise ship terminals. 4 lanes, long straightaways. At 3 a.m. with no traffic, it feels like a runway. But that's the trap, because the route doesn't stay open. The northern loop cuts east just before the George Washington Bridge, Washington Heights, the narrowest part of the island. You cross to the east side in less than a minute, drop back onto the FDR, and you're heading south toward the finish. Here's what made the Manhattan Loop different from every other street racing challenge in America. It wasn't about raw speed. A fast car on an empty highway is just physics. This was about threading 26 miles of mixed terrain through tunnels and traffic lights and construction zones without making a single mistake that draws attention. Speed mattered less than precision, and nobody had ever done it on camera until 2010. That year, 2 anonymous guys from New Jersey called the CBC Collective uploaded the first footage of a completed loop. Sped up, no faces, no names. Their time was 26 minutes and 3 seconds, beating an earlier mark of 27 minutes set by underground racing figure Alex Roy, who'd spent a full year scouting the route before attempting it. Tang watched the CBC video and saw something they didn't. He saw a record set by people who treated the loop like an extreme stunt. He believed he could beat it casually. The 2000 BMW Z4 he chose made around 255 horsepower. Not a supercar, not modified. A convertible you could buy used for $20,000. He didn't add a turbo, didn't strip the interior, didn't even disable traction control. The only addition was a Sony dashboard camera mounted behind the windshield. He scouted the route multiple times at night, learned the traffic patterns, identified where police cruisers typically parked, figured out which red lights he could catch green with the right timing. On August 26th, he drove to the on-ramp at 116th Street, pressed record, and went. He later said it felt like going to the grocery store, that the run wasn't even his best attempt, that he could consistently do it under 24 minutes and believed he could hit 19. That confidence would destroy him, but first, it made him famous. The video he uploaded wasn't the raw footage. He sped it up 4.3 times, cut it to 6 minutes, and layered an electronic dance track over the top. The result looked cinematic. A stock BMW threading through Manhattan at what appeared to be impossible speed, passing under illuminated bridges, shooting through tunnels, the digital stopwatch ticking in the corner. Previous loop videos were raw and shaky. Tang's version was polished, almost artistic. And honestly, that's what made it blow up. And that's when the wrong person noticed. On September 4th, 2013, a reporter cornered NYPD Commissioner Raymond Kelly at a formal dinner and asked about the video. Kelly hadn't seen it. When he watched it, he made a public statement. The department would use every tool available. License plate readers along the route, traffic camera archives, digital forensics. They would find this driver. That was a Wednesday. Tang was arrested Thursday night, the NYPD highway. Special Investigations Unit tracked his IP address through his YouTube username. From the username to Verizon, his internet provider. From Verizon to his apartment in East Harlem. No warrant, no stakeout, just a trail of digital breadcrumbs that took less than 48 hours to follow once the commissioner gave the order. Think about that. The guy posted the evidence under a username linked to his home internet account. That's not getting caught, that's turning yourself in with extra steps. Detectives showed up at his door. Tang answered in shorts, a t-shirt, and sandals. The detective flashed a badge. Tang didn't wait for the question. "I know why you guys are here. I'm the guy that made the video. I'm AfroDuck." They arrested him on the spot, charged him with speeding, reckless endangerment, reckless driving, traffic device violations, unsafe lane changes, and following too closely. They impounded his BMW using a forfeiture law typically reserved for drug dealers. The next morning, cameras captured Tang being led from the 25th precinct in handcuffs. He smiled, said nothing. Here's where it gets strange. The case against Tang wasn't straightforward. The video was sped up 4.3 times. You couldn't identify the driver from the footage. You couldn't confirm the actual speed from a time-lapse. The car was registered in British Columbia. And Tang's lawyer argued that posting a video of a crime isn't the same as proving who committed it. But Tang had already talked to Jalopnik, a major car blog days before his arrest. He'd given an interview as AfroDuck bragging about the run, said he could do it consistently under 24 minutes, said records were meant to be broken, said being a fast driver doesn't make you a reckless one. After his arrest, he talked more, told police he'd done the loop multiple times, said driving fast was normal for him, said he thought he could do it in 19 minutes. Every word became evidence. The DA offered a plea deal, 60 days in jail. Tang rejected it. He wanted a trial. Believed the evidence was weak, believed a jury would see the original unedited footage, which showed him driving at a far less dramatic pace than the sped-up version suggested, and acquit. The trial started on Halloween 2014, 10 days of testimony for a traffic violation. The prosecution treated it like organized crime. They flew in expert witnesses from Google, Facebook, and Verizon on taxpayer money to authenticate digital evidence. They played the sped-up video for the jury and compared Tang's loop to a Formula One race around Monaco, called him a man who turned Manhattan into his personal racetrack and endangered every person on the road. Tang's lawyer countered with the original unedited footage, and when the jury watched that version, the contrast was stark. The raw video showed a car moving briskly through mostly empty streets at 3 a.m., stopping at red lights, slowing around construction near the World Trade Center, easing off the gas when passing 3 parked police cruisers. The defense argued he'd averaged 66 miles per hour, that the sped-up edit made a Tuesday morning drive look like a death wish. But Tang had given police too much to work with. His own words filled the prosecution's case. "I drive fast all the time. Driving fast is normal for me. I can consistently do it in 24 minutes. I think I could do it in 19 minutes. Those weren't quotes from the video. Those were statements he volunteered after his arrest. Every sentence was read back to the jury. They convicted him. On November 3rd, the night before the verdict, Tang says he got a phone call. A friend of a juror told him, "You're going to be convicted no matter what." At 4 a.m. on November 4th, Adam Tang packed a suitcase, walked to his car, the same BMW Z4 the police had eventually returned to him, and drove north, out of Manhattan, through the Bronx, up Interstate 87, across the Canadian border. His wife was asleep. He didn't tell her. She went to work the next morning not knowing he'd left the country. When he reached the border crossing, the agent recognized him, handed back his Canadian license and said, "Good luck, AfroDuck." The jury convicted him in absentia. Reckless endangerment, reckless driving. On December 8th, Supreme Court Judge Ann Donnelly sentenced him to 1 year in prison. She called him a person who sped around the city as fast as he could to indulge a juvenile fantasy. Tang watched the sentencing from an undisclosed location in Canada. He gave interviews to ABC, to Global News, to multiple outlets. From Canada, on camera, openly admitting he was a fugitive, openly taunting the system. The biggest lesson I learned through all this is that if the cops come knocking at your door, don't cooperate. The NYPD responded by going after his wife. Detectives showed up at their East Harlem apartment every morning at 6 a.m. for days, searched closets, checked under mattresses, accused her of aiding and abetting a fugitive. She hadn't known he was leaving, hadn't helped him pack, hadn't driven him to the border. She'd gone to sleep next to her husband and woken up alone in an apartment that was about to be searched by the same detectives who couldn't keep him in the country. So why didn't they bring him back? Because the conviction was a misdemeanor, not a felony. And the United States doesn't extradite for misdemeanors. Pulling a Canadian citizen back across the border for a reckless driving charge, the paperwork alone would cost more than the crime was worth. A Canadian Foreign Affairs official confirmed it to reporters. The U.S. would have to formally request extradition, and for a misdemeanor, that request would almost certainly be denied. A source close to the case put it simply, "We're not going to be storming into Canada to bring him back here." Tang was contacted once by a Canadian police officer after returning. The officer told him directly, "We're not gonna do anything. The arrest warrant is technically still active. If Tang ever crosses into the United States, he'd be detained. But as long as he stays in Canada, the conviction is a piece of paper with no enforcement mechanism behind it." Just sit with that for a second. The NYPD commissioner launched a personal manhunt. Detectives traced an IP address in under 48 hours. Prosecutors flew in witnesses from 3 tech companies, 10 days of testimony, a guilty verdict, the maximum sentence, all of that, for a guy who drove around an island in a stock BMW at 3 in the morning. And Adam Tang drove home in the same car they'd tried to take from him. Most legends we've covered who put their face or their footage online eventually paid the full price. 5 years, 10 years, careers destroyed, freedom gone. Tang's price was different. He kept his freedom but lost the life he'd built around it. He can't enter the United States, can't visit the city where he lived, can't see the people he left behind without risking arrest at the border. His wife didn't just lose a husband, she became a target. Detectives at her door every morning for a week searching for a man she didn't know had left. The marriage didn't survive it. And here's the part that sticks. Tang wrote about the whole thing afterward on Jalopnik. Every dollar, every court date, every mistake. He didn't frame himself as a victim. He framed it as data, like he was writing the manual for whoever came next, which, in a way, he was. He figured out the one variable the others missed. If the punishment lives in one country and you live in another, the punishment doesn't exist. That's not a loophole, that's a border. The numbers tell you everything you need to know about how the system responded. 10 days of trial for a misdemeanor. Expert witnesses flown in from 3 different tech companies on taxpayer money. a forfeiture seizure using drug dealer statutes, a commissioner who publicly staked his reputation on catching one driver. Compare that to what happens when someone gets caught doing 120 on the Cross Bronx. A ticket, maybe an impound, maybe a court date 3 months out that gets pled down to a fine. Tang got the full weight of the machine because the video embarrassed the machine. And the result of all that weight? A conviction they can enforce against a man doing interviews from his couch in Canada. But the case did something the NYPD never intended. It published a blueprint. Every mistake Tang made was documented in court records, news coverage, and his own writing. And the next person to attempt the loop studied all of it. Upload within days of the run? Tang did. Got caught. Use an account traceable to your real identity? Tang did. Got traced through his IP in 48 hours. Give interviews to journalists? Tang did. Every quote became prosecution evidence. Talk to police without a lawyer? Tang did. Bragged about doing the loop multiple times. Reject the plea deal? Tang did. Got the maximum sentence instead. Every wrong move was cataloged. Every consequence was public. The Manhattan Loop had its first martyr, and martyrs teach the next generation what not to do. 7 years later, someone applied every single lesson. On June 29, 2020, at 2:36 a.m., a white McLaren 720S pulled onto the same Manhattan circuit. COVID-19 had emptied the streets. The city was still in lockdown. Traffic that would normally clog the route at any hour was almost non-existent. The conditions were unrepeatable. Manhattan will probably never be that empty again at any hour, on any night, for any reason. The McLaren completed the loop in 21 minutes and 3 seconds, 3 minutes faster than Tang. Despite catching 24 red lights compared to Tang's 6, the car's onboard computer showed an average speed of 69 miles per hour and fuel consumption of 5.9 miles per gallon, numbers consistent with sustained high-speed driving in a car producing 710 horsepower. Where Tang used a stock BMW worth $20,000, this driver used a supercar worth $300,000. Where Tang treated the run as casual, this driver treated it as a military operation. But the driver didn't upload the video for 25 months. It appeared on YouTube on July 21st, 2022, credited to a user called JT Thornton. No face, no voice, no identifying details beyond the car itself. A McLaren with barely 1,200 miles on the odometer. The timing was surgical, 2 years and 1 month between the run and the upload, long enough for any statute of limitations on traffic violations to expire, long enough for surveillance footage to be overridden, long enough for license plate reader data to be purged from databases. Tang posted his video 3 days after the run and was arrested within a week. The McLaren driver waited 25 months and has never been identified. Same route, same crime, same city. Completely different outcome. The difference wasn't speed or skill, it was patience, and the knowledge of exactly what happens when you don't have it. As of now, nobody knows who drove the McLaren. No arrests, no investigations, no commissioner ordering a manhunt. The video has been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. The driver remains a ghost. Adam Tang lives in Canada. The warrant still hangs over the border. He can't cross it. But within Canada, he walks free. No charges, no restrictions, no one coming for him. He published his entire story on Jalopnik. Every dollar it cost, every mistake he made, a confession and a warning, written freely by a man the system convicted but couldn't cage. The Manhattan Loop record stands at 21 minutes and 3 seconds, set during a pandemic on streets that may never be that empty again. Tang's record stood for 7 years. This one might stand forever, not because it can't be beaten, but because the conditions that made it possible won't come back. So here's the question. Was AfroDuck a reckless amateur who got lucky with a passport? Or did he expose something real about how the system works, that the punishment depends less on what you did and more on where you're standing when they try to collect? And the McLaren driver who broke his record and stayed invisible? Genius? Or just someone who watched what happened to AfroDuck and took notes?